answer that. I see you all saw Angela leave set. She went and grabbed us another member of Congress. We are joined now by Congressman Gregory Meeks out of New York. He serves on the Foreign Relations Committee. Angela,
Democratic
in
leader.
her capacity as a former executive director of the Congressional Black Caucus, worked very closely with Congressman Gregory Meeks. So it's wonderful to be joined by you.
He's also the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus PAC. He walked by yesterday. I was like, today we're snatching him. I'm probably going to get in trouble with the chief of staff, but I was like, I need him for 3 minutes. I just wanted Mr. Meeks in the middle of Ted talking about the importance of electoral politics, running for office himself. Mr. Meeks, you fight every day to ensure that our numbers increase. We are a strong 60 now. CBC members, I want you to talk about why it's so important to invest in entities like the Congressional Black Caucus PAC. Shameless plug, I sit on the board, so I had to go get my chair.
Look, what we're talking about is having real power in America. What we're talking about is making a game change, and this is why this is a historic moment. You talk about 60. Now, what happens with that 60, we're going to have at least 5 members. When we take back the majority in the House, we're going to have 5 members of the CBC that will be chairs of full committees. You look at people like Benny Thompson from Mississippi being chair of Homeland Security. We talk about education, and we want to make sure that we got real history. Bobby Scott from Virginia will be chair of Education and Labor. We talk about how black farmers have been robbed and not have justice. David Scott from Georgia will be chair of the Agriculture Committee. We talk about financial services, which is really important. You talk about all the finance in the world. Sister Maxine, Auntie Maxine will be chair of the Financial Services Committee. And your little brother here, I will be chair of the House Foreign Affairs Committee.
Yes, we know.
And over 31 members of the CBC will be chairs of major subcommittees. So we're talking about investing in the CBC. We're talking about setting the policies for the United States of America and getting justice for many people across. You know, if we're talking about voting rights, if we're talking about criminal justice reform, if we're talking about creating wealth and reducing the wealth gap, that's what this is all about, and making this, a statement that then turns into reality. Now, to me, this is Dr. King's dream. It's a good time to be alive today. Right now, when you look at the fact, I can tell you, at my age, many individuals did not think that we would see another person of color being president. So one thing that I will say that Don DeCon was right about, when we look at, when I see Barack Obama and now I see Kamala Harris, I know where a black job is. It's president of the United States of America. It's a black job. And that's what this is really all about. It's about real power and making a difference.
Black jobs do not happen without Black PAC, so I just wanted to get you on here for a shout-out. So thank you.
Wait, does he have to run right now? I want to ask one quick question.
Sorry,
well, Congressman, we're going to send you another member from Baton Rouge and Cleo Field.
Yes, sir.
You get another one.
To get him back.
That's right. That's right.
Him and Kwesi, they bring a lot of history with them, and they're bringing them back.
That's right.
Congressman, I want to ask one quick question. We had your colleague, Congressman Benny Thompson, on yesterday, the ranking member on Homeland Security, and he spoke about how oftentimes foreign policy issues are not the top of the list of priorities for people, especially in our community, who are juggling so much, from how to pay the mortgage to keeping their kids safe to, sending kids to school. And I'm just curious, because you serve on the Foreign Relations Committee, it is crucial, a crucial committee, because what happens overseas very much impacts what happens here from a budget standpoint to policy. What would you say going into this new cycle, this election cycle, is the chief issue when it comes to foreign policy?
Well, there's a number of them. First and foremost, when you talk about the situation that's happening, whether it's the Middle East, is really important that we deal with that, to deal with what we're talking about with challenges with China. But I'll tell you what we don't talk about enough that should be on the front burner. What's happening in Sudan,
Yes.
Where you have more people dying
Yes.
every day, and it's not anyone is talking about it. And so when I become the chair again, that becomes on the front burner. To talk about what's happening in Haiti
Yes.
is, something
people
that's
look like
really
us.
important that look like us, that makes a difference. When you look even at what's going on where there's more black people than any place else in the world other than the continent of Africa is Brazil,
Yes.
and how they are affected with reference to dealing with the issues in Venezuela. And then you talk that deals with this migrant crisis that you're talking about. So we've got to deal with those issues. Those issues are on the front burner. And it's all interconnected, because when you have the war like in Ukraine, a lot of people don't understand what happens there is when you talk about food and food shortages. Well, the Black Sea, because of that war, is blocking some of the passage, which brings up the price of food and thereby causes inflation. It's all interconnected because the world now is much smaller than it used to be, and we are living with a global economy. We're talking about the fact that each, when you talk about food chains, which gets it, if they're shut down, it affects us. You talk about energy. That's a global issue of which we got to deal and trade with individuals for. The cost of gas.
Foreign policy becomes
so
kitchen
all
table
of that
issues.
is, some people look at it as just something that's far away, but it is domestic because it affects us domestically each and every day. And that's why you got to consider looking at foreign policy. And it's easy and it's harder to talk about diplomacy as opposed to going to war. And what we try to do is to try to make sure that we're talking about doing things in a diplomatic way, because then it is cheaper than having to go to war that costs the American people and everyone a lot more
Mr.
dollars.
Chairman, that's why you are on foreign relations. That's why you about to be the chair again.
Yes,
it's because that
indeed.
was one of the most accessible explanations I've heard as to why when folks say, all I see is all our money going overseas, someplace else. And that's what they summarize foreign policy to be. But when you talk about gas prices, you talk about the price of cereal because wheat can't be accessed.
That's right.
Or you talk about blockades that then raise the cost because of the shortages, low supply, high demand, higher price.
Inflation.
Absolutely.
That's what it is.
So these are I hope that we continue to talk about it in that way, because folks, largely in our community, when you have need yourself, it's very hard to then see what are your tax dollars being used to fill another need, when in fact what looks obvious may not be so obvious.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we learned from the pandemic. If somebody is sick someplace else in the world, they come here. It's important to make sure that we are working with others so that it keeps us safe and healthy because they are safe and healthy. So all of that is interconnected, and that's why we've got to make sure that we stay involved and understand what's taking place in a foreign affairs situation and what we do in our community.
We wish you well,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman.
Thank you.
We wish you well.
They
Thank
said
you.
I've been giving
Mr.
too much D9 love, but I just wanted to shout out Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity
06,
Incorporated.
baby.
Well,
06.
Roland shouted him out.
06.
That'll last the rest of the week.
Well, we are so grateful to Ted James and Congressman
Thank
you.
Gregory Meeks,
Thank
my
you.
favorite chair, for being here. We love
Thank you,
y'all.
Angela.
Thank you for coming.
Appreciate being with you all.
Absolutely.
And
you.
And